Hello, friends. This is Mr. James back for week 4, day 4, lesson 4. A lot of fours there. Continuing to read Beyond the Horizon. Make sure you have your book and packet with you. Our enduring understanding is learners understand that explorers have had both positive and negative effects on societies. Haven't quite seen much effect yet in this text of our explorers who are entering a different society. I'm assuming we'll get to that very soon. And our essential question is, how do readers quote accurately from a text when comparing and contrasting themes and topics? Um, if you remember last time we read, we left off with Sarah, who was hit by the wheel of a wagon and everything went black. And we know that she's sort of wandered away from her boat and doesn't really know where she's at. So looking forward to finding out what happens next, which I'm sure you are too. We're going to begin on page 32 and read from page 32 to page 39. Make sure you have a text with you or you're following along closely in my text here. And that will be beginning with chapter 3.
Chapter 3. The eyes that stared down at Sarah were dark and curious. The girl had a purple headscarf, faded and worn, covering long black hair. In her nose was a tiny hoop of silver. She smiled to see that Sarah was awake. Sarah was lying in a small room with mud walls. Light streamed in through an open doorway, and outside in the courtyard a water buffalo worked on some feed, its jaws grinding. Sarah recalled the market and the oncoming cart. But what of the trade's increase? How long had she been lying there? Panic rose up through her chest again. Sarah felt her head where it ached and tried to sit up. Nahi! The girl wagged her finger and gently pushed Sarah back down. She spoke to Sarah now, her voice dancing over an unfamiliar tongue, comforting, reassuring. "Daddy!" the girl called out, and an old woman shuffled in from the courtyard outside. In her hands were a bowl and a cup. The woman bent down and carefully lifted Sarah's head and put the cup to her lips. "Pani," she explained. Sarah took a long drink of water and lay back down. She felt so tired, so weak. The old woman ran her hand down Sarah's cheek with a soft smile, and Sarah thought back to how her father had done the same thing just before he'd left. She'd been so horrible to him. She wished he were there with her at that moment. She would react differently this time. The old woman scooped what looked like brown mud from her bowl and smoothed it down on the lump on Sarah's head. The smell was overpowering, stronger than the spices in the market, but it felt cool and soothing, and Sarah's eyes began to close. "Father," she murmured. "What the blazes do you mean lost?" Captain Booth looked up from the map that lay on the cabin table that he and Lieutenant Armitage had been studying. Cook stared at his boots, cap in hand, the first mate by his side. "Yesterday when I went to the butcher's to get some meat, I turned around and Sam was gone. Just vanished, Captain," Cook explained. "I thought he'd have come back by now." Captain Booth slammed a fist onto the table. "I'll not see one of my crew forsaken. Send out some men. You go with them, Cook, and bring him back." "Yes, Captain," said the mate, leaving the cabin. "Foolish boy," said Captain Booth. "We can't afford to let these tidings hold us up, unfortunate as they may be," said Armitage. "I just hope he is found quickly," muttered Captain Booth. Armitage turned back to the map. "This stretch of the channel just south of the town looks favorable for the trading post. A good approach from the sea and close to the trade route to the north. Is the land occupied? Captain Booth inquired. Armitage peered at the map and shrugged. A village or two, perchance. It matters not. Peasants can be persuaded to leave. Captain Booth nodded. Have your ship ready to sail. We weigh anchor tomorrow whether Cook's boy has returned or not.
Seems like we're getting to the conflict about the land and who owns it here.
The next day, when she woke up, it soon became clear to Sarah that her hope of making the trades increase before it set sail were slim and getting slimmer. Anguish washed over her in waves. Her head hurt too much to move. Each time she tried to walk, blinding pain shot through her skull, forcing her to lie down. She could only manage a few steps at a time with her rescuer, whose name she'd learned was Priya, under one arm. There was also the small matter of trying to figure out where she was. Priya helped Sarah outside and laid her down in the shade of a tree, making her comfortable. Then, while Daddy kneaded dough, Priya tended to a small fire. In the heat shimmering off the land, Sarah could just see the river. It was not too far from where she lay. Across green farmlands in the other direction, she thought she could detect the silhouette of a town. Was it the same place where the trade's increase was docked? Priya's home was no more than 2 rooms, 2 mud huts in a small village of similar huts. The huts all had curved, thatched roofs, and the inside walls of each were smooth and straight. Stuck to the outside were dark cakes made of animal dung, perfectly flat and mixed with straw, and each with the handprint of the person who'd made it. Sarah watched as Priya fed some dung cakes into the fire as fuel.
All right, and that is where we're going to stop. So we'll have to see what happens with Priya next time that we read. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to sharing some more reading with you, and as always, have a